Good morning, students. Today we are going to revisit parameters in functions. Students, in the previous two videos, we talked about how parameters are given to functions and how they are called through different types of argument. So students, we saw these given concepts using Python itself. That is, we practically used Python and understood how these given mechanisms work, how actually we send positional arguments, the default arguments, the keyword arguments, and the variable length arguments. Students, today I am here with a presentation of the same topics. I want to show the presentation as the topic parameters in functions is very important for all the chapters that follow. This concept is going to be used in all of the chapters that we'll read further. So, I wanted to show you an animation so that whatever doubts you have in the previous two videos, that gets clarified properly before we further study the other concepts. I should say the other topics of our course. So let us start. Students, so this is a presentation which deals with functions with parameters. This is the first program that we have here. You can well see this program has two functions. The first function is area s, which actually calculates and prints the area of the square after taking an integer value in the variable L. And the second given function is area C, which prints the area of the circle. Now students, if you'd see, and you can well notice that area S has nothing in its parenthesis, that is opening bracket, closing bracket, while it is being defined. But when you actually see area C function, it has a parameter. The parameter is R. So students, you can well see the difference. Area S has no parameter. Area C has one parameter. We have seen that when a function has no parameters, then while we call that function, we cannot pass a value to the called function. Here, when area S is being called, we are passing nothing to area S, and a variable L is locally taking a value from the user and printing the area using that value. You can well see L is that variable which is locally taking the value within area S, and what we are doing, we are printing the area of the square as L into L. But when you see area C, you are passing 10, and that 10 is being referred by R. So what if we don't pass that 10, or I should say if we don't pass anything? If we don't pass anything, then the interpreter is going to show an error, because R is eagerly waiting for a value and area C is not going to work if we don't send a value to R. So it is mandatory here to send a value to R. As one parameter is there, we will have to send one value. So we are sending 10, and that is being now referred by R, and R is being used by the print statement where we are writing 3.14 into R into R. So students, you understood? The first function, that is area S, requires no parameter, therefore we send nothing to it while it works for us. But area C requires one value to be kept as reference to the variable R that can be used afterwards. So students, this is how it works. Now let us also understand one thing. R, while defining area C, is the formal parameter, and 10 is the actual parameter. 10 is the actual parameter. So the value we actually send is known as actual parameter or actual argument, and the variable which takes the value, which is defined as parameter in the parameter list of the function definition statement, is known as the formal parameter. Okay students, so let us proceed further. Now see, we have area S in this given program also, and it works in the same way. This time it is only showing L, no problem. We are actually to focus where? We are to focus on area C. Area C has one parameter, as we saw earlier even. Now area C can take actually three types of things and send it to R. That is, when we call area C can send three different types of things, one out of the three different types of things. We should understand this. Area C can send a value directly, that is a literal directly. So 10 is being sent directly, and area C works for the first time with what? With 10 referred by R. Now see the second area C function, which actually is being called. It has 5 by 2 plus 4 by 5. Now 5 by 2 plus 4 by 5 is an expression. So you can also send an expression. So how expressions are sent? We can directly send an expression. But what our interpreter would do? The interpreter would first solve the expression and then give the resultant to R. R will refer to the resultant. So as you see here, we have 5 by 2. 5 by 2 is 2.5. Plus we have 4 by 5, and 4 by 5 is 0.8. So it makes 3.3, and that 3.3 can be used by area C to show a result. It is showing the result 34.1946. Now you see, there is a third way also. So we can give a value directly. We can even give an expression to a parameter as an argument, or we can even take a value in a variable. See, we have taken a value in a variable radius, and we are sending radius. So actually the value that is in radius is being sent to R. So what are the things that we can send as arguments while calling a function? We can send a value directly, we can send an expression, or we can even send a variable name. This is what we wanted here to understand with this given code snippet. Okay, so this is how actually our different type of arguments work. When you pass value, it goes directly. If you pass an expression, the expression is first solved and then it is sent to the parameter. And third, if you want, you can even send a variable name. So the value in the variable goes to R. Now R refers to the value in the variable. Let us proceed further. See this function. In the previous function, the parameterized function had one parameter. Here we have more than one parameter. You can well see sum2 has two parameters. One is A and the other one is B, and it only shows the sum of A and B. Now sum3 has three parameters, A, B and C. Let us see how we work with it. We take three variables L, M and N. We put values in L, M and N, that is the user puts value in L, M and N, and then first of all we call sum2 function. What we pass here? We pass L and then M. So we require two values here to pass because the parameter list of sum2 has two variables. Both of them are waiting for a value. If you had passed one value, sum2 would have shown an error because it is mandatory to pass value to each of the parameters in the parameter list while we call a function. Somehow these two variables, that is A and B, should have a value. So sum2 gives L and M, and these values go to A and B, and sum2 works for us. When sum3 is called, as three given values are to be passed, because three parameters are there in the parameter lists, namely A, B and C, so we are sending L, M and N. So L, M, N gives their values to A, B and C respectively, and sum3 function works for us. You can well see the output, and I think it is easy for you to now understand because the previous two videos had a talk of all these things in all length and breadth. Now let us move further. See, we are talking here of arguments with function call. What types of argument can we give to a function call? You saw that yes, a function call can have a expression, can have a value directly and a variable name. So that it can have. But what are the different types of argument in Python that can be sent? See, first of all, there is something called positional argument, then keyword arguments, then default arguments, and at last we have variable length arguments. All these things have been dealt with earlier, but we are revisiting them. So let us see. First of all, we'll see the positional argument, then proceed further. For understanding positional argument, let us take the same given example which we used earlier. Sum2 has two parameters A and B. Sum3 has three parameters A, B and C. We are passing L and M to sum2. The question is, who is going to take the value of L out of A and B, and who is going to take the value of M out of A and B? See, the values are given according to positions because L is being sent first, so L is going to give its value to the first variable in the parameter list. So L gives the value to A. M being second in the list, while calling the function sum2 as an argument, so M is going to give its value to B. So it is all about position. The function call statements actually send the value to the variables in the parameter list respectively according to the positions. So L gives the value to A and M gives the value to B, and sum2 function works for us. This is known as positional arguments, because they are getting the values because of the positions that has been used to send the value while calling the function. Now sum3 similarly has three variables, and L is in the first, then M is there, and then N. So L being the first is going to give its value to the first given parameter in the parameter list. So L is giving the value to A. M being second, M is going to give the value to the second variable in the parameter list. So M is going to give the value to B, and N is going to give the value to C. So it is all sequential in positional arguments when we try to send the call using positional arguments. We can see this using the following animation. You see, while the function gets executed, first of all, the program makes a function called sum2a comma b, and then it makes a function called sum2a comma b comma c. The functions have been made, but they have not been executed. Now let us see how we execute it. See, L is there, and suppose user has sent a value to L. Now M also gets a value from the user. Now N also gets a value from the user. Now what to do? Now sum2 L comma M function is coming for us, and we have to work with it. Suppose this function works. The interpreter executes this function. So what would happen? See, as the function gets executed, first of all, L is going to give its value to A, then M is going to give its value to B. Now the function actually works with the values in A and B. So the function worked. So you have understood how it works? L gives the value to A and M gives the value to B, sheerly because of their positions while calling sum2. L was first in the list of the arguments, and then we kept M. So L goes to A and M goes to B. So I think students, you have understood this. Similarly, now we'll talk of sum2 with L comma M comma N. Now sum2 with L comma M comma N. So L gives the value to A, M gives the value to B, and N gives the value to C. Now this function sum2a comma b comma c works for us. So this is how we give values to the parameter in the parameter list using positional arguments. Students, we have already seen in the previous two videos that we can change the order of giving the values using another sort of argument system, and that was known as keyword based. Let us proceed and see it again. And you all know that formal parameters are the parameters in the definition list, that is definition parameter list, where we define the function, and actual parameters are the parameters which we actually send while calling the function. They are also known as actual arguments. Now we'll come and see function call with keyword arguments. Now function call with keyword arguments, you can well see we have a function sum2 and we have only two given parameters A and B. Now you can come down and see that we have taken two variables L and M. L takes a value from the user, M also takes a value from the user, but see, while calling sum2 function, we have written something different. We have written B is equal to L, comma A is equal to M. What do we mean by it? We actually want to say that don't use the positional argument system. Use the keyword argument system. This B is equal to and A is equal to are keywords. Here we are trying to say that please give the value of L to B and value of M to A. So we are changing the order which positional arguments actually used. It used a sequential order. But here, using keyword argument, we have the liberty of giving values to any variable in the list anytime we want. If I want to put a value to the second variable in the parameter list first, we can write B is equal to L here. So B is going to get the value first and the value of L goes to B. And if I write A is equal to M, A being first in the parameter list, even then it is going to get a value after B has got a value. And it would get what? It would get M as its value. And see the output. This time the value of A is 40, even if it was the second number that had been entered, and the value of B is 30. And both of them sum up to 70. So students, you have understood what keyword argument means. Through keyword arguments, you can take the name of the parameter while calling and put a equal to sign and give the value. And that can get a value even earlier than the parameters which are prior in the parameter list while defining the function. So let us see how it works. One thing that should be understood here is that now you have a chance here that in the same function you can take use of both the types of arguments. That is, see here, ABC is a function. In ABC you can see that we have two parameters, P and M. Now while sending ABC, what we have done is we have put a keyword argument P is equal to 80 first, and then we have put a positional argument 90. Students, we can well use both the given ways in the same function call, but we should understand one important thing here, that Python does not allow keyword argument to be given first and then positional argument to be given. Here you see P is equal to 80 is a keyword argument and 90 is a positional argument. Python does not allow it. The Python interpreter has given a strict given instruction to us that we should always use positional argument system first and then we should use the keyword argument system. So here we should keep in mind that ABC P is equal to 80, 90 will give us an error. How to solve that error? You can well write 90 first, then you can give a comma and then give P is equal to 80. But while you write 90 first, who is going to get that value? 90 is to be going to P. And if you write P is equal to 80, then 80 is to be going to P. This is also wrong in Python. You cannot give two different values in the same function call for a variable in the parameter. Now P then would get 90 first, and then we are saying give 80 also. So this is also wrong. We cannot do that. So two things we should understand here. First, keyword arguments should not be before any positional argument. And second, you cannot give two values to one variable which is waiting for one value. Understood, students? So what would be the best way to work here with? We can write say 80, and then after comma m is equal to 90. So what happens? Positional argument first and then keyword argument. That would work for us. So students, understood? 2 points here. The first point is you should not give keyword arguments before positional arguments. All positional arguments should be prior to all the keyword arguments. And second is that you cannot give two values to a variable which is waiting for one value from the same function call. So understood? Let us proceed further. See how function call with arguments work for us. Which type of argument? Keyword arguments. So see, this is the function sum to a comma b. This is L which gets a value, and this is M which gets a value. Now suppose the function sum to is called and we have written b is equal to L, and then we have written a is equal to M. Now b is equal to L means you can well see L's value is given to b, and a is equal to M means M's value is given to a. So the function works in this way. It will execute. See, it executed. How it executed? L gave the value to b and M gave the value to a. This is keyword argument. Use of keyword argument. And you all know a and b are the formal parameters and L and M are the actual parameters or actual arguments. Now let us talk of function call with default arguments. Now what is default argument? We have already talked of. Let us see it again. See, we have a function definition here where we have a function sum to. It has two parameters a and b. Now b has a default value 30 with it. That means we have already given a value 30 to b. Now see that L is getting a value from the user and M is getting a value from the user. Now we are first calling sum to with a value L to be passed. That is, the argument has only one value to be passed. It has one variable that gives its value. Now who is going to take the value? It is all duty positional argument system. L is going to give the value to A, and what B would get? In this case, B is going to work with its value 30 and do the work for us. So students, if you have a default value which has been defined while defining the function for a parameter, then while calling the function, if we don't send any value to it, it works with its default value. Now come to the next given function call of sum to. It has L and M. Now it is again due to positional. L gives the value to A and M gives the value to B. In this case, students, A is going to work with the value of L and B is going to work with the value of M. It is going to hide its default value. It is going to shed off its default value and work with the value of M. So students, what is the whole given situation? So if a function definition has a default value, or I should say a default argument for a parameter, then that parameter works with the default value if we don't send a value while calling the function for it. But if we send a value for the default parameter, then the default parameter is going to hide the default value and work with our value. So this is how default arguments work. But students, here also there is a thing which should be understood. Let us see. First, we should see how it works. Then we'll see that thing which should be understood. Now, this is a function which has a default value in B. The value is 30. The function's name is sum to. Then we have A comma B. That is two parameters A and B. Now L takes a value and M takes a value. L and M both take a value. Then sum2 works with L as a parameter. So what would happen? Now L would give its value to A, but B is not getting a value, so B is going to work with 30 only, the default value, and thus the function is going to do its work. Now let us see the second case. Here we are giving two values while calling the function, two actual arguments. One is L and the second is M. Now what happens? L gives its value to A, so it gets a value. Now M gives the value to B, so B takes the value which M has. It shades of its default value. Now it works with the new value, the value of M, and the function executes. See, so this is how default arguments work. And as I said, student, one thing should be understood here: default arguments should always be given from right to left. If you give a default argument to the left parameter and you have left the right parameter with no default arguments, it is going to give an error. You see, what is the error? Non-default argument follows default argument. So P is equal to 40 is a default argument and Q is a non-default argument, and it says non-default argument is following default argument. Python interpreter does not allow it. Whenever you want to give a default argument, it should always be given from right to left. Any call to the function, even if you see sum2 10, 20, you would think, okay, no problem, P is going to take 10 and Q is to work with 20. But then also Python interpreter is not going to work with it. It is going to give us error. And in the second call where we have written sum2 10, now you can well understand, if even 10 goes to P, what Q is going to take? Q is going to take nothing. So it is to give error anyhow. So thing here to understand is default argument should always be given from right to left. So I think students, you have understood. Otherwise you'll get error. Non-default argument follows default argument. Now see a function call here. We have used in this function call all the types of argument. You see, we have a function here sum4 which has N, M, P and Q. Q has a default argument 40 and it is the rightmost, so no problem. It is valid. Now while we call, 10 is using the positional parameter system, that is positional argument we are giving. P is equal to 20 and M is equal to 30 are using the keyword system of arguments, and Q is equal to 40 is using the default argument system. So we are using all types of argument system while calling sum4. So students, we can use them as a mixture, no problem in it, except two things that is to be kept in mind. Never give a keyword argument before a positional argument, and never use a default argument at the left before giving the default argument to the right. That is, default argument should always be given from the right then to left. Now students, we'll talk of a very important topic here. The topic is mutability and immutability of parameters. Students, let us see what it means. Mutability and immutability means that while you call a function and send a argument to a parameter in the parameter list, if the argument is of mutable type, then any change that occurs in the parameter is going to be reflected back to the argument that you sent. And if it is of immutable type, the argument which you are sending to a variable is of immutable type, then any change made in the parameter is not going to be reflected back in the argument that you sent while calling the function. Let us see. It is writing here, the changes made on the mutable formal parameter by the called function gets reflected back by the actual parameter. Now, the changes made on the immutable formal parameter by the called function does not get reflected back by the actual parameter. We'll see it, we'll have a code and understand it. Now here you can see integer, float, string, tuple, they are of immutable type. So the actual argument is not going to be reflecting the changes. That is, changes reflected in actual parameter will have a no here. No changes would be reflected in the actual parameter for integer, float, string and tuple. But lists and dictionary, if we send through an argument to a parameter, any changes made by the parameter on the list or dictionary is going to be reflected back. We'll see this. Let us see. See here, L is a list. Come down and see. L is a list which contains 3, 4, 5, 6. T is a tuple which contains 1, 2, 3. And D is a dictionary which contains 1 as key and India as value, then 2 as key and France as value. Now you see, we are calling fun1 function and sending a list L. We all know list is of mutable type. Now we are sending a list L to P. So P also becomes a list. Now see, we have done a change in P. Now we all know when L was sent, P contains even, P refers to 3, 4, 5, 6. So P is 0. P is 0 contains, I said it contains 3. But what I said make it 10. So now P0 is 10. Then I said P dot append 20. So P now gets one more value, 20. So what is the thing that is present in P now? Now P has 10, 4, 5, 6 and 20. So what P has? P has 10, 4, 5, 6 and 20. So when printed, see, it shows 10, 4, 5, 6 and 20. And we have also printed the type of P. See, P's type is list, as I said, because you sent list, so P becomes a list. Now we come back. After we come back, the next line is print. After execution of fun1, list L has. Now you see, list L has the same things which P has. That is what we were saying. List L also has 10, 4, 5, 6 and 20. See, list L doesn't show 3, 4, 5, 6. That is what we were talking of. That when you send a list as an argument to a parameter, here see P, whatever changes the parameter does, that is whatever changes P does, the change is reflected back in the actual argument. That is reflected back by L. L is reflecting the change. But see the second case. We have a tuple 1, 2, 3. We all know tuple is immutable. Now as the tuple is immutable, while we send the tuple T to fun2 function, now see fun2 has a parameter Q. Q also becomes a tuple. Now we change the value of Q. We write 4, 5, 6. We don't change a given value because in tuple we cannot change a given value. There cannot be in place change. The whole given tuple is being changed therefore. Now when we print Q, you see it shows 4, 5, 6 and it also shows that Q is of which type? Tuple type. When we come back from fun2 function, the print statement works. After execution of fun2, what we have? Tuple T has. You can well see tuple T has the original thing 1, 2, 3. That means 4, 5, 6 has not been reflected back in tuple T. That is what we were saying. That when you send a argument which is of immutable type, that argument, if it is changed by the formal parameter, the change done by the formal parameter is not going to be reflected back by the actual parameter. That is the actual argument. Here T is the actual argument and Q is the formal. Q is changing, but T doesn't show that change. Again, see, there is a third given thing, that is we have a function 3 which passes D. We all know D is a dictionary, and D dictionary, as you know, it is of mutable type. Dictionaries are of mutable type. So a change done in D, that is we have made a new key and value. We have made 3 as key and Denmark as value. And while we print it, we can see that the dictionary D has all the three values, that is 1 India, 2 France and 3 Denmark. So changes made by R is getting reflected back in D. So students, you have understood, when mutable things are sent as an argument to a parameter, changes made by the parameter is reflected back in the actual argument, that is actual parameter. But when immutable things are sent, then the changes made by immutable parameter doesn't get reflected back in the actual argument. This is what we wanted to understand here. So students, we should proceed further. Now we have a parameter which is of variable length. You can well see, students, the parameter which is of variable length is P. Now you can see we can or cannot send a value. If we don't send a value, then for I in P is not going to work for us. Only a line will be shown changing. The cursor will go to the next line, but for I in P is not going to work for us. But when we send 20, I see it is printing 20. When I send 20 and 30, P can take 20 and 30. So P can take variable length value. It may not take a value, or it can take 1 value, 2 values, 3 values, 4 values. So you can see how it works with the values. Since you have understood what variable length is, now let us proceed further. Here we have a function argument which includes everything. A function parameter has nms, a default parameter p is equal to 40, and then a variable length parameter. You see, variable length parameter is even right to the default argument, that is default parameter. This is possible, students. It is possible. Now let us see. Here, if you work with funvar nothing, it is going to give error. If you give 20, maybe n takes 20. What about m and s? If you give 20 and 30, so say n takes 20, m takes 30. What about s? So they are going to give error. But when you give funvar with 20, 30 and 40, n takes 20, m takes 30 and s takes 40. And p takes the default value 40, and we give nothing to t. No problem. T is not going to show its work, but n, m, s and p are going to show the value. You can well see. Now when you say funvar 20, 30, 40, 50, so n gets 20, m gets 30, s gets 40 and p gets 50. Again we don't give anything to t. So you see, n is equal to, the output shows n is equal to 20, m is equal to 30, s is equal to 40 and p is equal to 50. Now when we give funvar with 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 80, so 20 to n, 30 gets, m gets 30, s gets 40, p gets 50 and t takes two values, 70 and 80, and it shows their value there, you see. So students, you can well see two things important here. Variable length parameter can be given to the right of the default parameter. Earlier we had heard that default parameter should be the rightmost, but variable length parameter supersedes it. It can be given to the right. But always follow that given principle of positional parameter first and then actual arguments. First positional argument and then actual argument while function is being called. Let us see one more function here. The function is having nms, a variable length parameter t, and p is equal to 40. Here p is equal to 40 is the rightmost and the variable length is before that. We can do this, no problem in it. All the things can be anywhere except that default parameter, it should be the rightmost. Only variable length can supersede it. That is to be understood. Now again, funvar with no value, funvar with 20, funvar with 20 and 30, they are not going to work. When you give funvar with 20, 30, 40, n is going to take 20, m is going to take 30 and s is going to take 40. T is not going to take anything and p is to work with 40. So understood, students, how it works? Now when 20, 30, 40, 50 given, then what we see? 20, 30, 40, 50. Then funvar gives n 20, M takes 30, S takes 40, and then what we see? T takes 50 and P works with 40. Understood, students? Then FUNVAT 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 80. What we see? M takes 20, M takes 30, S takes 40, T takes all the three, 50, 70, 80, and P works with 40. If you wanted to give P, at last you should have written P is equal to 80. Then 80 would have been given to P. So in this way, we see how all the types of argument can work together. Students, one more thing to understand here, when we talk of variable length argument, whatever values you pass 1 value, 2 value, 3 values, 4 values, whatever you pass to variable length argument, they are going to the variable length argument as a tuple. So variable length argument are always a tuple. You understand that here T is a tuple. It creates a tuple. You can well see when we send 20 and 30 to T, M gets 40 and N gets 50. So 20 and 30 shown by T is actually part of a tuple. So T is a tuple here. N and M are integer variables as integer values has been sent to it. T has been sent 2 values. These 2 integer values are going into T as a tuple. So T becomes a tuple. So understood? This is all, students, for today. I think you have understood the concept properly. And the 3 videos of parameters with function, if seen properly, will help you to master this given art of giving parameters to function. In the next video to follow, we'll talk of returning values from function. So students, today we conclude here, and in the next video we would meet again. Thank you very much and have a very nice day.